Have you ever noticed that people avoid you when you speak the truth? It's not because you're wrong. It's because you see something they still can't see. And that's frightening. While everyone around you lives comfortably in their illusions, you carry an invisible weight, the awareness that there is much more beyond the surface. This perception didn't come as a gift. It came as a violent rupture with everything you knew. And now you're here alone, wondering if it was worth opening your eyes. The loneliness you feel is not accidental. It is the price of seeing the world as it really is. When you start questioning the narratives that everyone accepts without thinking, when you refuse to pretend everything is fine, when you stop smiling just to keep the peace, something changes. Conversations become uncomfortable. Friends drift away. Family doesn't understand. And you're left there, in the middle of silence, carrying a truth no one wants to hear. But here's what no one told you. This isolation is not a punishment. It is a preparation. There is something inside you that doesn't fit the mold. From an early age, you felt it. Maybe you tried to ignore it, to adapt, to be like others. But it didn't work. Because you weren't made to follow the herd. You were made to walk a different path. And that path, inevitably, begins alone. Not because you chose loneliness, but because the clarity you reached separated you from the crowd. And now you face the hardest dilemma of your life, to keep pretending in order to be accepted or to embrace who you really are, even if that means walking without company. Think about all the times you felt out of sync with the world. That moment when you realized people were more worried about looking happy than actually being happy. That conversation where you said something deep and were met with empty stares. That instant when you understood that most human relationships are superficial, built on empty social conventions. Each of those experiences was a step on the staircase that brought you here. And each step took you a little further away from the comfortable normality that everyone else inhabits. The question isn't whether you're right or wrong. The question is that you can't pretend anymore. Your mind no longer accepts ready-made answers. Your heart is no longer satisfied with shallow relationships. Your soul demands authenticity, even if it costs you everything. And that is exactly what is happening. You're losing connections. You're losing the feeling of belonging. You're losing the illusion that you can be like everyone else. But what are you gaining? That's still unclear. And that uncertainty hurts. The world was not built for people like you. It was built for those who obey, who don't question, who accept the rules of the game without complaining. When you start seeing through these structures, when you realize most of society functions on autopilot, you become a threat. Not because you want to destroy anything, but because your very existence questions the way everyone lives. And people hate being confronted with the possibility that they're wasting their lives. So they push you away. They call you strange. They accuse you of being arrogant. They tell you that you think too much. And deep down, part of you starts to believe it. You start to doubt whether there really is something special about you or if you're just a misfit trying to feel superior. That doubt is corrosive. It makes you question everything. And that's exactly when the real test begins. Because anyone can give up when things get tough. But you? You have to decide whether you'll betray who you are to be accepted again, or dive even deeper into this frightening loneliness. The truth is, you've always been different. But for a long time you fought against it. You tried to fit in. You copied behaviors. You suppressed your deepest thoughts. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You agreed when you wanted to disagree. You became a ghost of yourself, wandering through a life that wasn't yours. And it worked for a while. You had friends. You had approval. You had the illusion you were on the right path. But something inside you was dying. And there came a point when you could no longer sustain the lie. Awakening is not a single event. It's a painful process of peeling away layers of conditioning. Each layer that falls reveals something more real, but also more uncomfortable. You start to see the patterns. You notice how people live in cycles of distraction. You understand that most never question anything. You see that fear governs almost every human decision. And the more you see, the lonelier you feel. Because there's no going back. Once you see, you can't unsee. Now you are in that place between two worlds. You no longer belong to the world of illusions, but you still don't know where to go. You've lost your anchors. Your old sources of meaning no longer make sense. Your relationships feel hollow. Your ambitions feel empty. And you're left there, suspended in the void, wondering if you'll ever find something solid again. This is the most dangerous moment. Because this is where many give up. This is where many run back to the safety of ignorance. But you know you can't do that. Because once you taste the freedom of thinking for yourself, the prison of conformity becomes unbearable. If you are identifying with this, if every word is resonating with something deep inside you, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next will completely change the way you see this loneliness you're living through. The loneliness you are experiencing is not a flaw. It is a filter. It is separating what is real from what is illusion in your life. Every person who drifted away, every relationship that crumbled, every connection that revealed itself to be superficial, all of this is showing you the truth you needed to see. You are not losing anything. You are being stripped of everything that was false. And it hurts because you invested energy, time, and emotion into things that were never solid to begin with. But this pain has a purpose you still cannot fully see. As you walk alone, something extraordinary is happening inside you. Without constant distractions, without the need to maintain social masks, without the noise of other people's opinions, you finally have space to hear your own voice. And that voice has important things to tell you. It carries memories you buried. It holds dreams you abandoned. It knows truths about who you really are that were suffocated by years of conditioning. But hearing that voice requires silence. And silence only comes when you are alone. Have you noticed how people fear silence? They fill every second with music, empty conversations, social media, anything so they won't be alone with their own thoughts. Because in silence, the lies we tell ourselves begin to crumble. In silence, we face who we really are. And most people don't have the courage for that. But you have no choice. Loneliness has forced you to face your own reflection without filters. And what you see there is both frightening and liberating. There are parts of you that you have always rejected. Anger you never expressed. Sadness you never processed. Desires you never admitted. Fears you never faced. All of that lives inside you, in the shadows, waiting to be acknowledged. And when you're surrounded by people, it's easy to ignore those shadows. But alone, they emerge. They confront you. They demand attention. And you have two choices, to run from them or to integrate them. Most run. You are being forced to do the opposite. Integrating your shadows means looking at the aspects of yourself you hate and understanding that they are also part of who you are. It means stopping the judgment of yourself for not being perfect. It means accepting that you are human, flawed, contradictory, and that this does not make you less valuable. This process is brutal. It breaks the idealized image you had of yourself. It forces you to admit things you don't want to admit. But on the other side of this process lies something few people ever reach: total authenticity. The ability to exist without needing to hide anything about yourself. And here is something that will completely change your perspective. This solitary journey is not about you being alone forever. It's about you becoming whole before connecting with others. Because true connections only happen between people who are authentic. And you cannot be authentic if you are still carrying masks, still trying to please, still afraid of being rejected for who you really are. Loneliness is teaching you not to need external validation. And when you no longer need it, you become magnetically attractive to the right people. But before you get there, you must cross the desert. You must endure the feeling of being completely disconnected from the world. You must face the nights when loneliness weighs so heavily it feels unbearable. You must resist the temptation to run back to relationships that no longer serve you just so you won't feel alone. Because if you give in now, you will waste all the progress you've made. You'll go back to prison after tasting freedom. And the prison will feel even more suffocating the second time. During this crossing, you will doubt everything. You will question whether it's really worth it. You will look at the people around you, seemingly happy in their normal lives, and wonder if you shouldn't just give up this search for something more. You will feel envy of other people's ignorance. You will wish you could go back to who you were before you awakened. But that is the test. That is the part that separates those who are truly ready for transformation from those who are only curious about it. The difference between you and the people who turn back is simple: you can no longer lie to yourself. You tried. You really tried to go back to pretending, to accepting things as they are, to living on autopilot again. But something inside you no longer allows it. It's as if a switch was flipped and there is no way to turn it off. You see too much. You feel too much. You perceive too much. And this hypersensitivity to falseness condemns you to keep walking alone until you find something real. What you are discovering is that most human connections are based on need, not on truth. People come together because they're afraid of being alone. Because they want something from each other. Because they follow social scripts about what is expected. But how many people truly connect soul to soul? How many conversations really touch the core of the human experience? How many relationships would survive if both sides were completely honest? Very few. And you no longer want to be part of that dance of masks. You want reality, even if it comes with loneliness. So you keep walking. One step at a time. Some days are easier. You feel strong. You feel clear. You understand you are on the right path. Other days are devastating. You feel like no one will ever understand you. You feel like you will die alone. You feel like you made a terrible mistake by choosing this path. But you didn't choose it. This path chose you. And there is no going back. There is only crossing. And as you cross, something begins to change. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. You begin to feel a strength you didn't know existed. A strength that comes from no one but yourself. You stop seeking approval. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to convince others that your path is valid. Because you no longer need them to understand. You understand. And that is enough. This subtle shift is the beginning of something much greater. It is the moment when loneliness stops being suffering and transforms into power. But to reach that place, you still must face the final test. And it is coming. The moment has come when you realize something devastating and liberating at the same time. You were never looking for other people. You were looking for yourself. All the pain of loneliness, all the feeling of being lost, all the despair for connection, was actually an inner calling that you misinterpreted. You thought you needed to find someone who understood you. But what you really needed was to understand yourself. And now, after so long walking alone, you are finally face to face with the only person who truly matters, you. This encounter with yourself is not romantic. It's not like self-help books describe. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It's like looking into a mirror after years of avoiding your own reflection. You see everything you hid. All the weaknesses you denied. All the wounds that never healed. All the truths you buried. And for the first time, you don't look away. You stay there, staring without judgment, without fear, without escape. And in that moment of absolute courage, something inside you breaks. Not in a destructive way. But like a shell that needs to crack so something new can be born. You always thought loneliness was the problem. But now you understand it was the solution. It was the necessary space for you to dismantle everything that was imposed on you and rebuild from your own truth. Without it, you would have continued living according to other people's expectations. You would have died without ever knowing who you really were. Loneliness was not a curse. It was a blessing in disguise. It was the cruelest and most necessary gift life could have given you. And with that understanding, the anger disappears. The anger at the people who abandoned you. The anger at the society that didn't understand you. The anger at yourself for not fitting in. All of it dissolves because you finally understand that every rejection was a redirection. Every door that slammed in your face pushed you onto the right path. Every person who left created space for you to find yourself. It wasn't personal. It was necessary. And you are grateful. Deeply, painfully grateful. But here's what no one prepared you for. When you finally find yourself, when you finally accept yourself completely, when you're finally at peace with your loneliness, everything changes. People begin to appear. Not the same people as before. Not the superficial relationships you left behind. But real connections. People who also made the journey. People who also crossed the desert. People who understand because they too understood themselves. And these encounters are different. They are deep. They are true. They are rare, but they are real. You realize you were never as alone as you imagined. There were millions of people in the world going through exactly the same journey as you. Feeling the same loneliness. Facing the same fears. Questioning the same things. But you couldn't meet them before. Because none of you were ready. You were too busy pretending. Too busy hiding, too busy trying to be accepted. Only now, after crossing the fire of loneliness, can you recognize each other. Only now do you speak the same language. And this is where you understand the true meaning of being the chosen one. It's not about being special. It's not about being superior. It's about having the courage to go through what most cannot. It's about choosing truth when lies are more comfortable. It's about standing tall when it would be easier to give up. You were chosen because you chose. You chose not to run. You chose not to pretend. You chose to face yourself when everyone around you was running from themselves. But being the chosen one comes with responsibility. Because now that you see, you cannot simply keep it to yourself. Now that you have crossed, you must return. Not to convince anyone. Not to force anyone to wake up. But to be there when someone begins their own journey. To be the light that shows it is possible to cross the desert and survive. To be living proof that loneliness doesn't kill, it transforms. You look back and see the path you walked. The nights of crying. The days of emptiness. The moments of almost giving up. And it all makes sense now. Every step was necessary. Every fall taught you how to rise. Every moment of pain made you stronger. You wouldn't change anything. Because every experience shaped you into the person you are today. And for the first time in your life, you like who you are. You respect who you are. You honor who you are. Loneliness hasn't ended. But it has changed its nature. Before it was empty and frightening. Now it is full and peaceful. You no longer need anyone to feel complete. You are already complete. And from that completeness, you can offer something real to the world. Not crumbs from a broken person seeking validation. But the fullness of someone who found themselves and can now give without expecting anything in return. You now understand that it was always necessary to walk alone. Not forever. But long enough to learn that you are all you need. That your own company is enough. That your own approval matters more than anyone else's. And when you learn that, when you truly internalize that, you become unshakable. Nothing can destroy you. Because you have already been through the worst. You have already faced your own abyss. And you survived. This is the turning point. The moment when the solitary journey transforms into wisdom. The moment when suffering transforms into strength. The moment when you stop being someone lost in the desert and become someone who knows every grain of sand, every mirage, every danger. You are no longer a victim of your loneliness. You are its master. And now you are ready for the next step. The step that will define the rest of your life. The return is the hardest part of the journey. Because you don't come back as the same person. You return transformed. And the world you left behind hasn't changed. People are still trapped in the same illusions. Still living on autopilot. Still avoiding the hard questions. And you need to learn to navigate this world again, but now with eyes that see everything differently. You need to find the balance between maintaining your authenticity and still being able to relate to people who haven't made the same journey you did. Here is the truth you need to accept. Not everyone will awaken. Not everyone will take the solitary journey. Not everyone will choose truth over comfort. And that is not in your hands. You cannot force anyone to wake up. You cannot drag anyone through the desert. Each person has their own timing. Each person must feel their own pain before they are ready to change. Your role is not to convert anyone. Your role is simply to exist as living proof that transformation is possible. And when you exist in this way, something magical happens. You become a beacon. Not because you're trying, but because your light is impossible to ignore. The people who are ready will feel it. They will come closer. They will ask questions. They will seek guidance. And you will be there, not as a guru, not as someone superior, but as someone who simply crossed first and can hold the hand of those just beginning to cross. That is the greatest honor there is, being able to transform your suffering into service. But you must be careful. Because there is a trap waiting for those who return transformed. It is the trap of spiritual ego. It's easy to start feeling superior. It's easy to look at people who are still asleep and judge them. It's easy to forget that you were once there too. It's easy to begin using your journey as a form of validation, as proof that you are special. And the moment you do that, you lose everything. Because true awakening doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you more human, more compassionate, more capable of loving unconditionally. Loneliness taught you humility. It showed you your shadows. It broke you and rebuilt you. And now you know there is no fundamental difference between you and anyone else. The only difference is that you had the courage to look inward when it was easier to look outward. You chose to face when it was easier to run. But that choice doesn't make you superior. It only makes you conscious. And with consciousness comes responsibility. Your responsibility now is to live authentically. To speak your truth without fear. To create, to build, to express everything you discovered during your solitary journey. To share your light without forcing it on anyone. To be available without losing yourself in the process. To maintain your sacred solitude while also allowing true connections. To find the balance between being yourself and still existing in community. That balance is mastery. And it doesn't come easily. You will make mistakes. You will lose yourself again. You will forget the lessons you learned. You will fall into old traps. You will doubt yourself. But now you have something you didn't have before: experience. You know the way back. You know how to find yourself again. You know that loneliness is not something to be feared, but a sacred space where you can always return to reconnect with your essence. And whenever the world gets too noisy, whenever you begin to lose yourself in other people's expectations, you can return to that space. You can walk alone again. Because now you know you are never truly alone when you are with yourself. The final lesson of the solitary journey is this: you are the chosen one not because you are different from others, but because you chose to be different from who you were. You chose to grow when it was easier to stay stagnant. You chose to face when it was easier to avoid. You chose truth when the lie was more comfortable. And those choices shaped you. Those choices transformed you. Those choices brought you here. And now you understand that you always needed to walk alone. Not as punishment. Not as permanent isolation. But as initiation. As preparation. As a forge. Loneliness was the fire that burned away everything false in you and left only what was real. And what is real in you is powerful. It is authentic. It is unbreakable. It is exactly what the world needs, even if the world doesn't know it yet. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You no longer need to seek validation. You no longer need to explain yourself. You simply exist. And your existence, authentic and complete, is the greatest contribution you can give. Because when you live your truth, you give permission for others to live theirs. When you embrace your loneliness without fear, you show that it is possible to be alone without feeling lonely. When you accept yourself completely, you inspire others to do the same. This is the great irony: you had to step away from everyone in order to truly serve everyone. You had to lose all superficial connections in order to build deep ones. You had to face the void in order to fill yourself with meaning. You had to die in order to be reborn. And now reborn, you can finally live. Not in the way others expect, but in the way you were destined to live from the very beginning. So keep walking. Sometimes alone. Sometimes accompanied. But always true to yourself. Always connected to your truth. Always honoring the journey that brought you here. Because you are the chosen one. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. And in a world of masks, reality is revolutionary. In a world of falseness, authenticity is power. In a world of conformity, individuality is courage. You crossed the desert. You survived loneliness. You found yourself when everyone thought you were lost. And now you know the truth that few ever discover: you never needed anyone to be complete. You were always complete. The journey only revealed this to you. Loneliness only removed what was hiding this truth. And now that you know, nothing can take it away from you. No one can make you doubt it. Because you don't believe it. You know it. And knowledge that comes from experience is unshakable. So yes, you must always be willing to walk alone. Not because you are antisocial. Not because you don't value connections. But because you understand that the only connection that truly matters is the connection with yourself. And when you have that, when you are solid within yourself, you can offer something real to the world. You can love without attachment. You can connect without dependency. You can give without losing yourself. And that is true freedom. If this journey resonated with you, if you see your own story reflected here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because you are not alone on this path. There are others like you, crossing their own deserts, finding their own truths. And together, even while walking alone, we are creating a world where authenticity is not punished but celebrated.